So, thinking about this, okay, sounds well and good, makes sense. Programmatic approach, not a quick exercise, fine. How do we do something like this, right? So just a few successful characteristics concerning software asset management programs. I mentioned before the executive and stakeholder buy-in. Really to support this and to facilitate, like I mentioned before, the management of escalation and the setting of strategy and aligning that strategy with operational initiatives under the program, it's imperative that you create and have a well-engaged steering committee with C-level support and buy-in in your organization. Again, these are the team members that are going to support the strategic initiatives. So if there's an issue with strategy, if there is an issue with execution, et cetera, escalations, they will be where the buck stops. And having an engaged steering committee is going to be a very powerful tool and a hallmark of a successful program, right? Not that you can't have a successful program without a steering committee, but that's going to increase your chances of success having an engaged steering committee. Next one is a no-brainer, right? Ensuring that data contracts, agreements, everyone has access to, right? So this is more of the discipline. If you're thinking in the IA, ITAM key process area setup, this is more the discipline of documentation management, right? Ensuring that the right people have access to the right data at the right time. So that's a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how much of a siloed nature and reticence to share some of this information exists, especially due to legacy setups, mergers, acquisitions, et cetera, in organizations. If you can get this to a good degree where everyone has the ability to affect change based on correct and complete data, that's going to be very powerful. And again, kind of a feature we've seen of successful programs. Documenting a complete and correct risk register and communicating that regularly to the business, right? Ideally, this relates back to that first bullet. If the software asset management or indeed the application portfolio management capability is going to uncover either an optimization opportunity or a risk, that has to be owned and communicated and followed up to be effective. Otherwise, if you're saying, look, there's a potential risk with this publisher, and no one's doing anything and it's not an effective governance, well, that's kind of a waste of time in SAM and in APM. So the documentation of these topics, carrying of this business intelligence of there's an opportunity or there's a risk, that is critically important. So again, we've seen successful programs are ones that treat that communication very effectively and leverage the business intelligence to get that back to areas of the business that need to take the requisite action. Creation of an adherence to an audit response framework. So this is very much more in the focus of software asset management. I'll spend a little time here. We would recommend a standard set of processes and procedures, inclusive of a standard set of roles and personnel, potentially, that would respond to potential challenges of compliance or audits in a structured and repeatable way. So, similar to the fact that you're building up a capability and you want things to be consistent and sustainable, this is no different in the area of specific risk mitigation around audits. You do not want to be reactive, running around like a chicken with your head cut off, finding out, where this data is incomplete. We need to get a report out. I don't know who to talk to. That is not where you want to be. You want to take this proactive and sustainable approach that, okay, we've received a notification from a publisher, and then that would trigger that response framework, right? So creating and adhering to that via policy is very important. And again, I'll throw it back to the first bullet with this as well. If that framework was not adhered to and there was an increase in potential risk, well, that would be a topic for the C-level or steering committee, as it were, to manage, right? So creation and adhering to that response framework to mitigate risk in the organization is something that we found to be a hallmark of successful SAM programs as well. This one, again, is more of a no-brainer, right? So long-term plan and budget, short-term phases that will support and establish the program and plan identification of risk areas, establishment of processes and controls to then execute and eliminate the risk areas, right? So that's a little bit, but obviously you have a programmatic approach. You want to both budget and allow your long-term plan to align with company strategy, but then in the short term, look for those opportunities, potential low-hanging fruit and risk areas, and make those priorities areas where you have a potential deficiency in your business via processes and controls. And that will help eliminate those risk areas, as well as identify those opportunities where you potentially can leverage some cost savings. So just that structured approach as well is what we've seen a lot of successful software asset management programs focus on, both looking at the long-term plan to make sure that there is a programmatic and rationalized structured approach, but also to identify the quick wins, and that will increase support in the short and medium term. Education, training, and resources. So, obviously, if you're a staffed, organized capability with budget resources, this speaks to continuous improvement, right? You want to make sure that the staff and involved roles in your organization are going to take advantage of industry leading knowledge and certifications as necessary, right? In order to have the capability to internally execute any of the project work that's required. And that last one, it looks like it's a little cut off, but it looks like it says process to support a single source of truth in terms of tooling, right? So you definitely want to have, a view to what you own and a view to where you have a potential area of risk, right? So we always like to talk about the known unknown and the unknown unknown, and that's a wholly and fundamentally different concept, right? If you have an unknown unknown, your thumb is squarely in the air, saying, I don't really know what's out there in the environment, and could be anything. Yeah, there's some kind of risk. I can't really quantify that. That is fundamentally different to saying, okay, I know that I have an unknown area and it is approximately 10% of my estate. And here are the hallmarks of that. And it is in, let's say, some Linux servers that I have an issue with discovery, and I can isolate which data centers they live in, right? So again, that's a completely different position to saying, yeah, there's some unknown stuff out there. I don't really know where it is. So when you have the known unknowns, that allows you to focus in and look at those deficiencies. And then, from a couple bullet points up, think about where you have those deficiencies and prioritize those processes and controls to help you eliminate the areas of potential risk.